Heaven has not just been speaking, it has been waiting. And now, it is declaring, this is not a coincidence. This is not just a message. This is the final scroll, unfolding before your eyes and before midnight strikes. This isn't content. This is confrontation. Heaven is pulling back the veil one last time to give you what you asked for: clarity, direction, confirmation, and a warning. You didn't find this message by chance. Something in the spirit summoned you. Your heart didn't start racing for nothing. That cold chill down your back isn't fear, it's spiritual recognition. Your soul already knew this moment would come. This is not a gentle whisper. This is a divine announcement. The final message from heaven will unfold before midnight. And it includes you. You are not scrolling through another video. You are walking into a moment that was scheduled before you were born. A moment written in eternity. A divine countdown has begun. And this message carries the sound of its ticking. Midnight is not symbolic here. It is spiritual law. Throughout Scripture, midnight was always a line of no return. At midnight, the destroying angel passed through Egypt. Those who were covered lived. Those who were knotted, not. At midnight, Paul and Silas sang praises, and prison doors shook open. At midnight, the wise virgins had oil, but the foolish were locked out. Midnight is where mercy moves out of the way and obedience becomes the dividing line. Chosen one. This is the kind of moment that doesn't come twice. There is something sacred about now, something irreversible, something that makes the heavens still and the spirit realm alert. This is not just another cycle of conviction. This is your turning point. You've felt the weight, haven't you? The shift. You've been sensing something was about to break open or break down. You're not imagining things. You've been walking with unspoken questions. Why do I feel like I'm running out of time? Why do I keep waking up in the middle of the night? Why do I feel like I'm being watched or followed even when no one is near? Because heaven has been watching and hell has been tracking. And the space between the two is closing fast. The season of spiritual sleepwalking is over. You've had too many confirmations, too many dreams, too many moments where God interrupted your normal patterns just to say, I'm still here. I'm still calling you. This is not just a wake-up call, it's the last call. As we read in the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 29 says, At midnight the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, but not one among the people of Israel was harmed. Midnight separates those under covering from those under confusion. And you, yes, you are standing at that line right now. The response window is open, but it is not eternal. And heaven is not repeating this message again. This is the hour where the scrolls of silence are being opened, where heaven is putting a final word into the mouths of its messengers. You are not just hearing a word, you are inside a word, living it, breathing it, feeling it press on your chest like fire wrapped in truth. You were never random. That's why darkness has fought you so hard. That's why you've never been able to settle. That's why your soul aches every time you hear, chosen one. You don't just hear it, you know it. Deep, under the skin, into the bone, into the blood. There's no more room for delay. What happens next in your life will not be based on emotion, it will be based on response. And not responding is still a response. Silence is still an answer. Hesitation is still a statement, and heaven is listening. This is your moment to agree, not just in thought, but in action, in faith, in public alignment. Like this message, if you feel the weight of what's being said, share it. If you know someone else is one decision away from divine interruption, subscribe. If you understand this isn't entertainment, it's activation. And most importantly, comment the number 333. 333 is not a trend. It's a signal, a confirmation that you heard the midnight call, that your soul agrees, that you choose to be counted among the awakened, not the asleep. Comment 333 now. Heaven is watching, and the clock is ticking. There is a sound rising in the unseen realm, and you've been hearing echoes of it in your spirit for weeks. It's the sound of something breaking, something shifting, something being released. But it won't reach your life by accident. It will only reach the aligned. And you, chosen one, have been marked for alignment before the strike of midnight. This is the hour where the lukewarm will fall away and the sealed ones will rise. Not the perfect, not the popular, but the positioned. You've been wondering why you've felt so off balance lately, why your normal routines suddenly feel too small, why your appetite has changed, why your circle has shrunk, why your peace has been disturbed. It's not depression. It's not fatigue. It's not burnout. It's spiritual recalibration. Heaven is correcting your footing, because where you're going, stability in the flesh won't sustain you. You need foundation in the spirit. And in this final window before midnight, heaven is realigning you to the frequency of your true assignment. You can't take old patterns into a new dimension. That's why the Spirit has been confronting everything in you that still flinches at obedience. Every idol you've protected, every excuse you've entertained, every delay you've justified. This is not spiritual cruelty. This is divine surgery. Because heaven cannot elevate what refuses to surrender. And you are not random. You were not born in this generation for survival. You were born for divine confrontation. Your very existence is a contradiction to the compromise around you. That's why you've never fit. That's why you feel heavier than most. That's why your presence creates tension without you saying a word. You are a signal in the spirit realm. There's a reason the warfare increased when you got closer to obedience. The enemy doesn't waste strategy on the silent. He fears the sound you haven't released yet. The one sealed inside of you, the roar, the decree, the cry of surrender that will ripple through generations. He fears it because he knows that when you finally yield, you become unstoppable. You are not a follower of the crowd. You are a breaker of patterns. And this pattern, this subtle cycle of almost answering God and pulling back in, fear must break. Now, before midnight. Not because you'll be punished, but because what's meant for you cannot wait any longer. The delay you've tolerated in the past will become disruption if carried forward into this moment. You've already outgrown your hesitation. The version of you that was afraid to obey, that version is dying. Right now, you can feel it. The tension in your chest, the tightness in your stomach, the burning in your spirit. That's not anxiety. That's transformation. And transformation never feels soft. It feels like fire. It feels like stretching, like silence that screams, like pain that births, like a holy pressure you can't explain to anyone, but you know it's real. You are not being crushed. You are being constructed. God is not trying to destroy you. He is dismantling what you built without Him. And He's doing it now. because after midnight, there won't be time for rebuilding from scratch. The hour is urgent, and so is the refining. The oil you'll need for this next chapter cannot be bought from others. It must be crushed out of you. That's why you've been hidden. That's why it's been quiet. That's why no one clapped for your obedience. Because heaven wasn't building your popularity, it was building your purity. And purity doesn't need applause. It needs fire. You've been in the fire, not by punishment, but by design. You've walked through the furnace so that everything fake would melt off. Every imitation, every shallow motive, every fear-drenched prayer. It's all burning, and what's left is holy. And now the holy must rise. You're not waiting for permission. You're walking in prophetic instruction. There are no more signs coming, no more delays being granted. The message has been spoken, and now, the burden is not on heaven to speak louder. The burden is on you to obey faster. The ones who respond before midnight will not be the ones who felt the most emotion. They will be the ones who surrendered even when they still had questions, who obeyed even with shaking hands, who walked forward without needing to know how it would all end. That is what makes you chosen. You don't wait until it makes sense. You move when heaven says move. You shift when heaven shifts. And heaven is shifting now. It's not waiting for your mood. It's responding to your posture. So posture your heart low. Lay down the plan. Release the fear. Bury the delay. And step into the moment that has been waiting for you. Because before midnight strikes, those who hesitated will remember what they felt and regret that they didn't move. But you won't be one of them. You feel the wind changing. You feel the heat rising. You hear the whisper turning into a trumpet. Don't just feel it. Walk in it. There's a cost to being chosen, but there's a greater cost to staying silent once you've heard the call. You didn't ask to feel this. You didn't volunteer to be spiritually disrupted at inconvenient hours. But you can't ignore it now. The final message wasn't just sent to you, it was ignited in you. And what you're feeling right now, the fire, the tension, the urgency pressing on your chest is heaven knocking on the last locked doors of your obedience, not to break in, but to give you one last chance to open them yourself. You are no longer in a waiting season. You're in a responding one. That means the timing of heaven is no longer flexible. The mercy that once gave you time is now giving you a choice. Obedience is no longer optional. You've tasted too much truth. You've seen too many signs. You've escaped too many traps to pretend this is just coincidence. You felt the weight of destiny even when no one else saw it. You've known quietly, deeply, that there was more. And now that more is standing in front of you, asking only one thing: will you obey? This is the hour where many confuse conviction with spiritual movement. They think feeling moved is the same as being changed. But chosen one, emotion is not obedience. Tears are not transformation. Only action is, and action, when it comes to God, must be immediate. Every time you delay obedience, your heart grows quieter toward the voice of God. Every time you say, later, you loosen your grip on what was meant to define your next season. And eventually, later becomes never, and almost becomes too late. That's why the enemy doesn't need to destroy you. It just needs you to delay. Because hell knows that partial obedience is still rebellion, and delayed obedience is still disobedience. You felt the pull, that sharp, holy pressure in your soul. And yet something in you still resists, not because you're defiant, but because you're afraid. You're not alone in that. Every chosen one has stood at this exact threshold. Moses stuttered. Jeremiah said he was too young. Esther hesitated. Jonah ran. But obedience has never required perfection. It's only ever required surrender. And that is what heaven is asking of you now. Not another plan, not another strategy. Just a simple, trembling, holy, irrevocable yes. Obedience is how you break the back of delay. It's how you silence the voice of fear. It's how you declare, I don't need the whole picture, just the next step. End quote. And that next step is now. There is no breakthrough without obedience. No prophetic fulfillment without movement. No next chapter until you close this one with full surrender. And surrender is not passive, it's violent in the spirit. Because it means you are choosing God above everything else. Even your comfort, your timeline, and your logic. The reason your soul is at war right now is because two kingdoms are pulling on you. One is whispering convenience. The other is commanding obedience. Only one will lead you into purpose. And only one has authority over your eternity. Heaven has already chosen you. The only question left is, will you choose heaven back? This is the pivot point. Everything from this moment forward will be marked. The spiritual world will remember what you did with this message. And your legacies. Your legacies waiting for what you say next. This moment isn't calling for applause. It's calling for agreement, for declaration, for the kind of surrender that heaven records. So, if you know this word is for you, don't let it pass you by in silence. Comment, I choose obedience. Say it out loud with your fingers. Let the words be written as a covenant. Because obedience isn't just about what you do, it's about who you declare allegiance to. By commenting, I choose obedience, you are severing ties with every spirit of delay, every pattern of procrastination, every idol of self-preservation. You are aligning your voice with the roar of heaven and saying, I will not be one who knew and still waited. End of. You are choosing movement, choosing urgency, choosing the King over comfort, and heaven hears you. As Jesus declared in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 15 says, if you love me, keep my commandments. It's that simple. Love is not proven by feelings. It is sealed by obedience. This is the hour for radical surrender, for immediate movement, for complete alignment, because after midnight, the window closes, the moment fades, and what you do now becomes what you walk in next. Let the spirit realm hear you. Comment, I choose obedience, because this is the moment that obedience stops being a thought and starts being your war cry. Before heaven ever spoke your name out loud, it marked you in silence. There are things that happened in your life not because you were weak, not because you were forgotten, but because you were being prepared. And that preparation rarely looks like glory. It often looks like breaking. There were seasons where you didn't recognize yourself, where everything you touched seemed to fall apart, where people left without explanation, where nothing made sense. Yet something in you kept saying, don't give up. That voice was not your imagination. It was the echo of the assignment you haven't even fully stepped into yet. You weren't being punished. You were being preserved. Heaven hides what it values. And for a long time, you have been hidden, not ignored, hidden, because if you were exposed too soon, the weight of your calling would have crushed you. So God allowed you to be overlooked, not to shame you, but to shield you. Every tear you cried in secret was training. Every battle you endured alone was shaping your discernment. Every door that didn't open was God blocking premature access to rooms your character wasn't ready for. Not because He didn't love you, but because He loved you too much to lose you to success you weren't yet stable enough to carry. You are not behind schedule. You are right on divine time. The wilderness you walked through, that wasn't wasted. That was where God taught you how to hear Him without the noise. Where He refined your motives. Where He removed your idols. Where He whispered to you when no one else would listen. You didn't grow in platforms, you grew in pressure. And pressure reveals the real ones. Many can praise under spotlight, but only the chosen learn to worship in the dark. And that's where you found Him, not in comfort, but in crushing, not in fame, but in fire. And now the fire has finished its work. You are different. You don't respond the same. You don't seek what you used to chase. You've been tempered like steel in flame. You've been forged not just to shine, but to strike. What once shattered you now sharpens you. What used to confuse you now activates you. You've been upgraded in silence, and the silence was sacred. That season of nothing happening was the most active time in the Spirit. While others saw stillness, heaven saw you being rebuilt, layer by layer, wound by wound, glory from the ground up. And now that glory has matured into something far more dangerous than charisma authority. Spiritual authority doesn't come from position. It comes from permission. And you, chosen one, have been given permission to speak, to shift, to shatter atmospheres, to declare, to uproot, to rebuild, to war in prayer and win without performance. And you didn't get this authority by asking for it. You got it by surviving, by refusing to bow when it would have been easier, by worshiping when it didn't make sense, by staying when leaving would have been justifiable. You carry the kind of weight the world can't understand. That's why people misunderstand your silence. It's not emptiness, it's reverence. You've learned to stop speaking when God is moving. You've learned to wait before reacting, to kneel before confronting, to listen before launching, because you're not led by impulse anymore. You're led by unction. This is the maturity the Spirit has been waiting for. And now that you've passed through the valley and stood in the silence and learned the language of stillness, heaven is ready to release what has been held up, not because you earned it, but because you were refined for it. You were not refined for recognition. You were refined for revelation. You don't need a crowd to obey anymore. You don't need clarity to say yes. You've been stripped of ego and clothed in oil. And now the oil speaks for you. It goes before you. It covers what you cannot explain, and it draws what you could never attract in the flesh. What's about to happen next won't be the result of striving, it will be the result of surviving. And not just surviving pain, but surviving the silence without leaving your post. You stayed, you wept, you waited, you worshipped anyway. And that anyway is the sound of obedience that moves heaven. So let no one tell you you're late. You were being finished. And now, when heaven speaks again, it won't be to remind you who you are. It will be to release you into the promise, into the place, into the mantle that fits, because now your soul is strong enough to wear it. You have not missed your moment. You have matured into it. And the silence that once felt like absence will soon make sense, because it wasn't empty. It was sacred, chosen, be now. Your spirit knows. This isn't theory. This isn't emotional hype. This is divine reality unfolding around you. The stillness is breaking. The scroll is unsealing. The delay is ending. And now, the weight of your assignment is pressing against the inside of your chest, asking for one thing: release. This is no longer a time to just observe. It's time to respond. Because heaven is not entertaining you, is enlisting you. You were never created to stand on the sidelines while eternity shifts. You were formed, tried, refined, and marked to move with the wind of heaven. And that wind is moving now. You've felt it. Your discernment has gotten sharper. The atmosphere around you has changed. Conversations that once drained you now feel foreign. Environments you used to tolerate now irritate your spirit. That's not random. That's spiritual transition. The realm of heaven is drawing a linear and you are being pulled to the front. You didn't survive all that pain just to stay silent. You didn't pass through fire just to blend in. You were preserved so that when the final message came, you'd recognize the sound. You've heard that sound today. It's not from this world. It's not from emotion. It's not from a person. It's heaven saying, now, it's your time. What's about to unfold before midnight will not wait for consensus. It will move with or without applause. God is releasing instruction, not explanation. Only the obedient will receive the manifestation. Many are sensing this shift, but few are moving, because it costs something. It costs your comfort. It costs your normal. It costs your silence. But the cost of disobedience is always heavier than the cost of surrender. This is the moment where watchers become warriors, where listeners become leaders, where survivors become senders. You are not just a recipient of the message, you are a carrier of it now. And carriers must be willing to go wherever the cloud leads. You weren't chosen for safety. You were chosen for glory, and that glory cannot dwell in divided hearts. Heaven is calling for the whole you, not the Sunday version, not the public version, not the one who posts about faith but secretly doubts your own voice. This final message will not settle on the surface. It demands your depth. And depth requires a decision. You've been hovering near the line for too long. God has been patient. But patience is not permission to stay stuck. It's mercy, with a timer. And the timer is running low. Before midnight, something must break. In you, through you, for you. And when it breaks, what flows out will carry generations. This is not just a personal moment. It is prophetic transfer. A divine handing over of mantles, of movement, of message. And if you miss this moment, you won't be destroyed, but you will be bypassed. And that bypassing will not be cruelty. It will be kingdom justice, because what's coming cannot be delayed by disobedience. So rise now. Let go of hesitation. Cast off the weights. Shake the slumber from your soul. You've been equipped. You've been broken. You've been called. And now, you are being released. But don't walk out of this moment in silence. The spiritual realm responds to action. When you say yes, don't whisper, I announce it. Let the world know your alignment. Let heaven see your agreement. Like this message, not for popularity, but to mark your digital altar. Share it, because someone else is one message away from their deliverance. Subscribe, because this stream of anointing doesn't end here. You've stepped into flow. Let your screen become your sword. Because sometimes, your obedience starts with the decision to not scroll past what your soul recognizes as holy. There's nothing average about you. You were never created to fit systems built by fear. You were never called to follow the patterns of delay. You were sent as a breaker, a builder, a voice in the wilderness. And heaven doesn't just want your faith, it wants your follow-through. Let this moment mark you. Let this confirmation become commission. And let your yes resound, not just in the private chambers of your heart, but across the airwaves of every realm that has ever doubted your identity. This is the hour of unfolding. This is the window of awakening. This is the beginning of what was always written about you. Chosen one. Don't just feel the weight of this message, respond. Like, share, subscribe. Let your spirit shout through every click, I am ready. Because what comes next requires movement, not emotion. And you were made to move. Chosen one. The final message was not meant to entertain your mind. It was designed to activate your spirit. Heaven does not waste words, especially not in this hour. And if you're still here, it's because something deeper than emotion is rising in you. Something ancient, something holy, something that remembers what you were born for. You are standing in front of a spiritual vault. The key is not knowledge. The key is obedience. But not just general obedience, timed obedience, prophetic obedience. And that is where many fail, not because they don't hear God, but because they delay. And in the spirit, delayed obedience is disobedience in disguise. Midnight is coming, not just chronologically, but spiritually. A moment when heaven seals what was open, a moment when scrolls stop speaking and start unfolding. And if you are not in position, what was meant for you will pass you by, not out of punishment, but because purpose cannot wait forever. You've sensed the weight of this season for a reason. You've been feeling pressure in ways you couldn't articulate. Even your dreams have changed. The air around you feels different. You can't tolerate certain conversations anymore. You can't rest like you used to. That's not just growth. That's spiritual alertness. Your soul is hearing what others are sleeping through. This is what heaven does right before a transfer, right before a shift. Things grow uncomfortable. Right before doors open, warfare increases. Right before promotion, God goes quiet, not to confuse you, but to test whether your memory of what he said is stronger than your fear of what you see. And now, chosen one, you are being asked to remember your place in this hour. You were not called to wander in circles. You were not called to stay hidden in spiritual fog. You were chosen to stand, to discern, to respond before the clock runs out. The message is clear. The countdown is active. You are not waiting for the heavens to shake. The shaking has already begun, and you are not on the outside of it. You are woven into it. Every tear you cried in the last season, every storm you endured in silence, every whisper you obeyed when no one else understood, it was all preparation for this moment. Because what unfolds before midnight doesn't just touch your life, it touches everything connected to you. Family, bloodline, territory, assignment. Heaven does not move for individuals alone. It moves for generational consequence. That's why the weight has been so heavy. Because your obedience is not just yours. It belongs to every soul that will come into alignment through your yes. And when heaven weighs whether a door should open, it doesn't look at your emotions. It looks at your posture. And if your posture is yes, everything changes. There is a reason why the Spirit won't leave you alone. Why you feel the weight even after the video stops playing. Why you can't stop thinking about the time 3:33. 11:11 12:00. God speaks in patterns, and you've been seeing the same signals over and over again. It's not superstition. It's spiritual coding. Heaven is inviting you to agree, not with another explanation, but with a number. One that speaks in the Spirit. One that marks this moment as a covenant, not just an impression. If this message is pulling on you deeply, undeniably then, you know what to do. Comment 999. Not because it's a trend, because it's a seal. In the Spirit, 999 signifies finality, completion, the last trumpet before the scroll closes. It is not a number of fear. It is a number of urgency. 999 says, I hear, I agree, I respond. 999 says, I will not be one of the ones who delayed and missed it. 999 says, I am not afraid to be counted among the awakened. As we read in the book of Revelation, chapter 22, Verse 10 says, do not seal up the words of the prophecy of this scroll, because the time is near. Chosen one. The scroll is open now, but it won't remain that way. Prophetic time does not revolve around your comfort. It moves at heaven's pace. And right now, heaven is accelerating, shifting, announcing, releasing, and all it's waiting for is your agreement. This isn't about a number, it's about your response. Because silence is no longer neutral, it's spiritual resistance. But movement, even as small as a number sends, signals into realms you cannot see. So mark this moment. Comment 999. Let the enemy know you will not miss this hour. Let heaven record your yes. Let your voice echo before the final trumpet sounds. Midnight is closer than you think. Chosen one. Everything about your path has felt lonely, hasn't it? The detours, the delays, the sudden silence after moments of spiritual clarity. It wasn't just hard, it was strange. You couldn't explain it to the people around you. You tried, but the words always fell short. So you stopped trying, and for a while, you began to wonder if maybe you were making it all up. But you weren't. You weren't lost. You weren't forgotten. You were being hidden on purpose. The isolation wasn't punishment. It was consecration. You were never abandoned. You were being set apart. And what looked like rejection from the outside was actually protection from the inside. God did not let certain people get close to you, not because you weren't worthy, but because what you carry is too weighty for untested hands. Some friendships didn't survive the fire because they weren't meant to carry your oil. Some relationships had to break because they were tying your identity to a version of yourself. Heaven was preparing to crucify. And you were being stripped, not to be left empty, but to be made holy. What you felt as loss was really a sacred exchange. God removed access to your life so that He could take full authority over your identity. You weren't walking away from people. You were walking toward your original blueprint. And every step into solitude was a step closer to the presence of the one who called you before anyone else could label you. Do you remember the nights where no one checked on you, but somehow you still had breath in your body and a flicker of hope in your spirit? That wasn't chance. That was grace. The kind that doesn't need an audience to work. The kind that works best when everything else is silent, because silence makes you listen. And in the silence, you heard what crowds would have drowned out. The reason your journey felt so brutal is because heaven wasn't building you to be liked. It was building you to be trusted. Trusted with truth. Trusted with fire. Trusted with revelation. Trusted with the kind of authority that doesn't require applause to be effective. You weren't waiting to be discovered. You were being disciplined. God does not send unprepared voices into final hour assignments. He sends the crushed, the quiet, the ones who no longer need validation to obey. And you, chosen one, are becoming that one, not by accident, but by process. And it has not been easy. You've been misunderstood, labeled too intense, too sensitive, too deep. People laughed at your convictions, doubted your discernment, questioned your motives, but they didn't know what you knew in your gut. This wasn't just spiritual curiosity, it was divine calling. And now that calling is no longer a mystery, it's being activated. The hidden days are coming to an end. Not because God is finished hiding you, but because the world is now ready to see the version of you He's been forming in secret. This is why the pressing has increased. This is why you can no longer remain where you once fit. You're being summoned, pulled, not by man, not by need, but by divine urgency. And it's not just about your destinites, about your generation. There are people attached to your obedience, territories tied to your footsteps, cycles that will only break when your mouth opens in boldness. You carry not only oil but instructions, specific blueprints that were handed to you in the Spirit during those nights of weeping. Those dreams you couldn't interpret, those whispers you journaled and didn't share with anyone. You're not just chosen, you're sent. And now, the silence that once defined your wilderness will soon become the sound of release. But only if you continue forward. If you retreat now, if you run back to the noise for comfort, you'll forfeit what heaven has been building for you all this time. You don't belong in the crowd. You never have. There is nothing common about your anointing. It's why you've been misunderstood. It's why you've been targeted. It's why the enemy invested in your confusion early, because he could see where this was going long before you could. But now you see it. You're not hidden because you're weak. You were hidden because you were holy. And holiness, in this hour, is not a suggestion, it's a requirement. So don't curse the quiet season. Don't resent the isolation. That cave you hated, that wilderness you thought would kill you, it kept you alive. It grew your roots deep. It purified your intentions. It silenced the noise long enough for you to remember the sound of His voice. And now, that voice is saying one thing: come out of hiding. The time of unveiling has come. Chosen one. The moment of unveiling doesn't begin with a crowd. It begins with clarity. Clarity that pierces the fog of confusion. Clarity that cannot be borrowed from others, only awakened from within. And that awakening is what you've been walking through, even when you didn't have language for it. This season has not only been about protection, it has been about definition. Heaven wasn't just shielding you, it was shaping you, teaching you the weight of your words, the responsibility of your discernment, the authority hidden inside your silence. Because before God reveals a vessel, He defines it clearly. You've had moments where you questioned everything: your gifts, your mind, your assignment. You wondered if you heard wrong, if you missed it, if somehow your obedience wasn't enough. But the truth is this: heaven has been stretching you for precision, not punishing you for imperfection. When a warrior is trained, every movement matters. Every weakness must be exposed, not to shame, but to strengthen. And you, though tired, have passed through the fire. You've endured correction without running. You've sat in silence without self-destructing. You've stayed planted even when your roots were aching. And now, heaven trusts you with weightier things. This next chapter will not look like the last. It won't require the same posture. What was once about surviving is now about stewarding. You're not just being delivered from battle, you're being trained to carry dominion. The oil on your life is not decorative. It is functional. You are not anointed to impress, you are anointed to interrupt. That means your presence will unsettle systems. It means your obedience will disturb atmospheres. It means the rooms you enter will shift. Not because of your volume, but because of your alignment. You are not called to fit in. You are called to confront. That's why your life has never flowed like everyone else's. Why timelines never made sense for you. Why normal never seemed to stick. It's because your calling requires consecrated pacing. God has had you on a schedule that didn't match culture because your life was never designed to follow culture. It was designed to shift it, and shifting requires stillness before movement. That's what this season was, not wasted time, but divine pacing. Heaven slowed you down so that when you moved again, it would be with purpose. You've been refined in private so that you won't collapse in public. And now, what's forming in you is unshakable. Not because you're confident in yourself, but because you're finally rooted in something deeper than approval. You're no longer chasing confirmation, you're carrying conviction. And conviction will always outlast applause. Your identity is no longer up for debate. You've died to needing permission. You've laid down the addiction to being understood. What you carry now is clarity. And clarity is dangerous to darkness. Because once you know who you are, the enemy can't manipulate what you'll accept. That's why the fog is lifting, why the doubts are thinning, why your heart feels quieter but your spirit feels louder. You are not being emptied, you are being recalibrated. The noise is making room for precision, and in that precision, your purpose is being sharpened. Don't rush through this clarity. Sit in it. Let it finish its work. Because clarity isn't just information, it's instruction. Heaven is giving you keys in this silence. Blueprints you'll need in the days ahead. Phrases that will open doors. Prayers that will break chains. Wisdom that will expose counterfeit alignments before they get close. You are not the same. Not in voice. Not in weight. Not in reach. You are walking into a season that doesn't need you to perform just to be fully aligned. Because when alignment is present, heaven sends support without being asked. Resources start flowing. Divine connections appear. Stratégie surface. Not because you forced it, but because you finally matched the rhythm of your assignment. This rhythm isn't rushed. It's steady, focused, intentional. You won't need to chase opportunity. It will meet you in obedience. And when it does, you'll recognize it. Not because it flatters your ego, but because it confirms your surrender. You'll know it by the peace that accompanies it. Not the pressure, You'll know it by how it pulls purpose out of you, not performance. Chosen one. This is your transition into weight-bearing territory. The air is thinner here, the light is brighter, but the footing is firm, because the foundation has been forged in fire. And fire doesn't lie. Fire only reveals what is real. You, now, are real, whole, seen, sent, ready. Heaven has waited for this version of you. And now that you've arrived, watch what unfolds. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey where silence is no longer enough, where the fire inside must be voiced. You've listened, you've discerned, you've carried the weight quietly. But now, the Spirit is pressing you to declare, not for attention, but for alignment, not for others, but for your own soul. You see, some breakthroughs don't happen until you speak, until you give heaven verbal consent to move, until your mouth matches what your spirit already knows. You've nodded in the dark long enough, but this moment, it requires more than internal agreement. It requires prophetic declaration. Chosen one. You've been wrestling with the same battle over and over again. Cycles of hesitation, loops of self-doubt, waves of delay disguised as waiting on God. But you weren't waiting on Him. He's been waiting on you to open your mouth and release your yes. There is a principle in the Spirit that cannot be bypassed. What is unspoken remains unsealed. You can carry calling, feel conviction, and even understand purpose, but until you speak, it stays in a holding place. The atmosphere cannot respond to what you're unwilling to release. And the enemy, he hopes you stay quiet, because your silence keeps your authority dormant. But that ends now. This is not the time to whisper agreement. This is the time to declare war on silence. You are not just breaking generational patterns, you are breaking spiritual delay. You are stepping out of confusion and into clarity, and clarity requires a voice. There's power in a single sentence when it comes from the right place. And what heaven is waiting for now is a sentence, a verbalmarker, a declaration that shifts realms and tells both darkness and doubt. I've decided. So if you feel the stirring in your chest, if you know this is your call to rise, not just in thought, but in voice, and say it with full spiritual weight. Comment, I won't run. Why that phrase? Because running is what the enemy expected. Running from calling, running from warfare, running from responsibility. But what this moment demands is standstill obedience. The kind that says, even if I'm afraid, I'm staying. Even if I don't have all the answers, I'm not moving backward. Oh, I won't run is more than a statement. It is a sword. It cuts ties with every old identity that said you weren't enough. It severs agreements with fear. It shatters spiritual paralysis. Because when a chosen one makes up their mind, all of hell takes notice, and all of heaven begins to move. You've run long enough from yourself, from your voice, from the mantle you felt but didn't want. But now you see it clearly. You were never going to find peace by avoiding your calling. You only find peace when you walk in it. Running might have felt like safety, but it always led you back to restlessness, because your spirit cannot rest when your assignment is being avoided. And you were not created to wander. You were sent to occupy. God didn't choose you to survive the storm. He chose you to command the winds. But command only comes after confession. That's why this comment matters. Not for algorithm, but for alignment, for covenant, for heaven's record. When you say, "I won't run," you're saying, "I won't run from obedience, even if it costs me. I won't run from surrender, even when it strips me. I won't run from warfare, even if I tremble. I won't run from truth, even if it isolates me. Because what's ahead of you demands courage you didn't know you had until now, but the Spirit did. That's why it's been preparing you in the shadows, strengthening your spine, stretching your roots, not to make you famous, but to make you firm. As we read in the book of Psalms, chapter 112, verse 7 says, "They will have no fear of bad news. Their hearts are steadfast, trusting in the Lord." And you've been called to stand with a steadfast heart. And that heart, it gets activated with speech. Heaven is voice activated. Power is released through agreement. And agreement begins now with a comment. So say it, not as a suggestion, but as a declaration. Comment, "I won't run," because this is your turning point. The moment your voice catches up to your mantle, the moment your yes becomes louder than your excuses, the moment the heavens open not because you cried, but because you declared. Don't just read this and walk away unchanged. Leave a trace in the atmosphere. Let the realms know where you stand. I won't run. Oh, say it now. Let it echo. Chosen one. What happens next is not about inspiration, it's about impartation. You've heard the words. You've felt the fire. You've walked through silence and stood under pressure. And now, you are standing on the edge of divine release, not just for your life, but for everything tied to your assignment. This is the final window before the midnight shift. And in this window, heaven is looking for those who are not just moved emotionally, but aligned spiritually. Not everyone will respond, but those who do, those who truly carry the mark of obedience, will unlock access that cannot be replicated or reversed. You've been carrying weight without recognition. You've been interceding without applause. You've been building in secret, praying in shadows, weeping in the unseen. But what you sowed in silence is about to return in supernatural visibility. You didn't miss your moment. You were being prepared for it. The weight that felt like crushing was actually consecration. God wasn't trying to destroy you. He was trying to hollow out space so that His glory could dwell in you without cracking the vessel. And now that vessel is ready. Your soul has been stretched wide enough to carry power, but power without alignment becomes chaos. That's why this message was sent to find you, now not tomorrow, not next year now. Heaven is releasing blueprints, instruction, authority, not for the masses, but for the marked. And you, chosen one, are among them, not because you earned it, but because you endured. Every tear you cried was seen. Every moment you almost gave up was recorded. And every time you whispered, "God, I'm still here," you didn't just survive. You were documented by heaven as faithful. And the faithful, they are now being summoned forward. But don't keep this moment to yourself. You see, spiritual awakening is never selfish. What stirs your spirit today is meant to ignite others tomorrow. This isn't a personal breakthrough. It's a prophetic baton. And if it changed you, if it shook something deep in your bones, then it wasn't just meant for you. That's why heaven moves through witnesses. People who don't just consume the word, but carry it. You were never meant to sit in this glory alone. You were called to release it. So, if this word has lit something in your spirit, if it's confirmed what you couldn't articulate then, don't just scroll away in silence. Don't just feel something follow through. Share this message. Not because it's a video, but because it's a vault and someone else needs the key you just received. The moment you pass it on, heaven multiplies what it gave you. Click like, not for metrics, but for marking. When you like this message, you're saying, I agree with heaven. I align with this word. Let it be so in me. And second, subscribe, because this isn't a one-time event. This is a stream of glory. The same voice that found you today has more to pour into your life. More revelation, more confirmation, more alignment. When you take these actions, it's not about digital response. It's about spiritual record. You're telling heaven, I didn't just feel the weight, I'm responding to it. I'm ready for what's next. And what's next? Everything you've been praying for in the shadows. The fulfillment of those quiet petitions. The breakthrough your spirit knew was coming but didn't know when. The divine alignment that changes everything. But it begins with public obedience. Silent faith has its place. But bold response is what opens scrolls. Let your movement match your revelation. Heaven does not hesitate when obedience is present. When a soul moves in agreement, realms shift immediately. What took others years, God can do in a moment for those who move in sync with His voice. And you, right now, are in sync. You've heard the sound. You've felt the tremble. The scroll is open, and your name is still on it. That means it's not too late. That means the promise still stands. That means you are still chosen for this midnight hour. So don't just absorb this word. Activate it. Let your response shake every realm. Share it. Let the fire spread. Like it. Let your agreement be recorded. Subscribe. Stay under the flow. Remain connected to the voice that found you. This isn't just a message. This is a mantle. This isn't just emotion. This is evidence. This isn't just today. This is the threshold to everything heaven planned for you. And your yes, your act of faith, your agreement in action, it moves heaven. Chosen one. By this point, you've already crossed over from merely hearing the message to carrying it. It's no longer just something spoken to you. It's something unfolding within you. You can feel it, can't you? The weight in your spirit, the holy tension between where you've been and where you're going. That's not confusion. That's transition. Spiritual transitions often come without announcement. They don't always come with signs and wonders. Sometimes they arrive as restlessness, as silence, as a deep pull to leave what feels familiar and walk into what you can't yet explain. You've felt that pull lately, that subtle but persistent voice that says, move. End of quote. But move where? And into what? That's the part that confuses most people, the middle. The space between promise and fulfillment, between the call and the confirmation. It's in this middle place where doubt tries to rise, where questions echo louder than answers, where even the chosen wonder, did I really hear him? Let me tell you what heaven already knows. You did hear him, and he hasn't changed his mind. He knew who you were when he called you. He knew your fears, your flaws, your inconsistencies, your tendencies to run, and still he marked you. Because God doesn't call the prepared, he calls the willing, then he prepares them through pressure. And the pressure you've been walking through, it's not proof of failure. It's proof that the process is working. You're shedding layers, shedding old mindsets, shedding survival patterns that no longer serve where you're going. It's uncomfortable, but it's holy. In fact, it's necessary. Because what's ahead requires more than faith. It requires fortitude, a spiritual spine, an inner strength that doesn't rely on applause to stay obedient. That kind of strength is forged in the fire, and you've been living in that fire. Some days, it felt like silence. Other days, it felt like loss. But if you look closely, you'll see the fingerprints of heaven on every step. The connections that dissolved. They couldn't walk with the version of you that's emerging. The prayers that felt unanswered. They were preserving you from distractions. The delays, they were divine edits, rerouting you to the exact moment you're standing in now. You didn't miss it. You didn't ruin it. You didn't fall behind. Heaven knew the exact second you would say yes. And every storm before this point wasn't just tolerated, it was tailored, specifically shaped to strengthen what was weak, to expose what was shallow, to reinforce what was sacred. Because your calling is not soft. It's sharp. It's disruptive. It carries consequence. You aren't called just to speak to culture. You are called to confront it, to tear down patterns and build prophetic paths. And that's why the enemy came for your voice. That's why the resistance felt so personal. He wasn't just trying to wound you, he was trying to weaken your conviction. But it didn't work. You're still standing, still sensitive, still surrendered. That's not weakness. That's evidence of a soul God refused to let fall through the cracks. Chosen one. Understand this. The season you're leaving wasn't wasted. It was a womb. And you are now in the final contractions. The spiritual tension you feel is the beginning of emergence. Something in you is about to be born, and nothing will ever look the same again. But births require stillness. They require focus. They require undivided surrender. You can't multitask purpose. You can't carry destiny and distraction in the same breath. You must decide, in this moment, that no matter what it costs, you will follow the voice that's led you this far. And that voice, it's not leading you to a stage. It's leading you to a place of release, a place where your words will carry weight, where your prayers will open gates, where your presence will speak, even when your mouth is silent. This is what you were shaped for. Not the platform, not the popularity, but the power, the kind of power that only comes when a soul has been through the fire and stayed pure. When a person has seen darkness up close and still chose the light. When someone has every reason to quit but refuses to bow. That's you. You didn't just survive, you were refined. You didn't just make it through, you became someone new. And now that newness must step forward, without fear, without shame, without apology. Because when heaven gets ready to move, it doesn't wait for convenience. It waits for agreement. And you, chosen one, are finally in full agreement. The old season can no longer contain you. The old mindsets can no longer define you. The old wounds can no longer delay you. You are crossing over, and nothing can stop what God has already begun. There is a reason the pressure has intensified, a reason the warfare has escalated, even when you've done nothing wrong. You've been feeling it in your body, your emotions, your sleep, your spirit. And no, chosen one, it's not all in your head, it's in the spirit. Because you're closer now than you've ever been. Heaven does not press like this without intention. And the attacks you've felt aren't because you're weak, but because you're dangerous. There's something heaven deposited in you long ago. And now, it's approaching its moment of manifestation. The enemy sees it. That's why everything has tried to distract, delay, discourage, or devour you in this season. But here's the truth. It didn't work. You're still standing, still praying, still discerning, still waking up at odd hours. Not in fear, but in spiritual tension. That's not insomnia. That's intercession. You're being pulled in the spirit. You're being summoned, called, and not gently, urgently. Because what is being unlocked now isn't just a breakthrough, it's a release, a timed release, a heaven-authored alignment of assignments and authority, and only the ready will receive it. Not the perfect, not the popular, but the postured, chosen one. You've been postured, not in front of crowds, but before God. You've cried in silence, fasted when no one saw, shut your mouth when you could have defended yourself. You've obeyed when it was hard. You've stayed planted when the ground felt unstable. That is posture. That is why heaven is moving on your behalf, now not because of your efforts, but because of your endurance. And now, the realm of heaven is responding. But before anything unfolds externally, it must be marked spiritually. And heaven watches for this moment of marking, a moment when a person says, I agree, I align, I will not delay anymore. You're at that moment now. It's not about a feeling, it's about a decision that gets sealed in the spirit. And sometimes, that seal looks like a number, not just any number, but a prophetic number, a spiritual agreement, a covenant sign. If this message is resonating with something in you deeper than words, if your spirit is trembling with that familiar mix of holy fear and clarity, if you know this isn't just for someone else, but for you, then it's time to respond with the number 444. Why 444? Because in the realm of spiritual symbolism, 444 is a number of foundation, of stability, of divine government and heaven-backed order. It marks the establishment of something unshakable, a transition from calling to commissioning, from waiting to walking. 444 says, I am aligned. I am ready. I am grounded in what God has spoken. 444 says, this time, I won't delay. This time, I won't second guess. This time, I'll obey, fully and immediately. As we read in the book of Isaiah, chapter 28, verse 16 says, so this is what the sovereign Lord says, see, I lay a stone in Zion, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone for a sure foundation. The one who relies on it will never be stricken with panic. Oh, chosen one, you are no longer in the trial phase. You are now standing on tested stone. The foundation beneath you is stable. What was once shaky has now been solidified through obedience, through loss, through midnight hours, through quiet surrender. And now that stability is being recognized by heaven, the oil on your life is increasing. The space around you is being expanded. The word in your mouth is being sharpened. The angels assigned to you are being repositioned. Why? Because you've been found faithful. Because you're not watching anymore. You're stepping forward. But even with all of heaven aligning, God still waits for one thing, your yes. A yes that is seen. A yes that is heard. A yes that is marked. So type the number. Say it as an act of faith. Let it rise from your spirit like a seal pressed into spiritual parchment. Comment 444. Because this time, the yes is different. It's not timid. It's not uncertain. It's not bargaining. It's rooted, grounded, fixed. This yes comes from a place of knowing who you are, and more importantly, whose you are. And when heaven sees that kind of yes, things begin to move quickly, suddenly, powerfully. So say it. Don't think twice. Don't let fear hold your fingers. Type it as an act of worship. 444. The number of the anchored, the ones who refuse to drift, the ones who walk in power because they are no longer waiting for another sign. Heaven just gave you one. Comment 444 now. Let every realm know you're in position. There is a weight that settles on those who are trusted with divine instruction. It's not always heavy in the flesh, but it presses on the spirit like a silent wind, steady, strong, and inescapable. Chosen one. You've been walking under that pressure without fully realizing what it was. It wasn't stress. It wasn't anxiety. It was assignment. You were born into a generation that values speed over stillness, noise over knowing, convenience over consecration. But something in you rejected that rhythm, even before you had the language for it. You knew, I was not made to follow what's popular. I was made to follow what's holy. That's why certain rooms always felt too small. Why the pace of this world made you uncomfortable. Why shallow conversation drained you faster than silence. You weren't being antisocial. You were being recalled by heaven. And when heaven recalls someone, it begins to rearrange everything around them. That's what's been happening to you. Rearrangement. The dismantling of what was never truly you. Not just externally, but internally. Mindsets have been crumbling. Old ambitions have lost their pull. Things that once triggered you now pass through you without reaction. That's not fatigue. That's formation. You are becoming someone different. Someone deeper. Someone clearer. Not because of a self-help strategy, but because heaven put its hand on your identity and said, come higher. Oh, and higher is not just elevation, it's exposure. When God pulls you up, He also shows you what's in you. That's why this season has felt like both glory and grief. You're seeing your strength, but also your shadows. Your gifts, but also your gaps. That's not failure. That's refinement. You are not being condemned. You are being commissioned. God is not surprised by your wrestle. He expected it. You were never called to walk blindly. You were designed to carry both questions and conviction. That's why the tension inside you hasn't disqualified you, it's matured you. You've stopped pretending. You've stopped hiding. You've stopped making excuses for the fire in your bones. That fire has purpose, and it cannot be snuffed out now. Everything in your life has been pushing you toward this conclusion. You are the answer to a problem heaven is trying to solve on the earth. You are not random. Your passions are not mistakes. Your sensitivity is not a weakness. Your burden is not just emotional, it's prophetic. You carry what systems cannot produce. You discern what training cannot teach. You've been equipped by pain, trained by silence, anointed by rejection, and now you are rising not just into visibility, but into responsibility. This is why things can no longer remain the same. You are too aware to go back to pretending, too awakened to settle, too aligned to compromise. The places where you once hid can no longer hold you. The patterns that once distracted you now disgust you. The words you used to keep inside are now demanding to be released. You are becoming a voice, not just a speaker, but a spiritual sound, one that pierces darkness, one that disrupts complacency, one that marks territories. And to become that voice, you had to first become a listener. That's why God didn't speak to you like he did others. That's why you didn't get instructions in ways that made sense. He wasn't trying to confuse you. He was training you to hear him in any condition. In the noise, in the pain, in the delay, in the disappointment. And you did. You listened. Even when no one clapped, even when nothing shifted, even when your prayers echoed back with no answer, you still leaned in. And that posture is what qualified you, not your perfection, but your persistence. And now, that persistence is turning into power. There is an oil being released over your life that cannot be bought. It cannot be imitated. It cannot be faked. It only flows through those who didn't quit. And you didn't. So now, the mantle you felt but couldn't explain is becoming visible. Now, the assignment that seemed far off is at your feet. Now, the voice that once trembled is being clarified. You are stepping into authority. Not borrowed, not assumed, inherited, because you endured, and the ones who endure are the ones heaven trusts, with revelation, with keys, with people, with nations. You are being handed access not because you were loud, but because you were loyal. The shaking didn't destroy you. It revealed you. And what's been revealed is not a shadow of your former self, but the full stature of who you were always becoming. A warrior, a remnant, a builder, a breaker, a sent one. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now, you have been measured, you have been marked, and now you are being moved. There are moments in the life of a chosen one when the air shifts not just around you, but within you, where something settles in your soul that you can't fully explain, but you know nothing will ever return to the way it was. You are living in that moment now. This shift isn't emotional. It's spiritual. It isn't temporary. It's eternal. You haven't just turned a page, you've crossed into a different scroll. One written before the foundations of the world, one sealed until this precise moment in time, one carrying your name, your mantle, your mission. And that scroll is now open. You've been prepared for this hour through experiences that looked nothing like promise. Pain that taught you to listen. Delays that taught you to discern. Disappointments that taught you not to place your faith in outcomes, but in the one who authors the outcomes. You have been taught by fire. Now, heaven is placing tools in your hands, tools forged through adversity. Discernment that was sharpened in betrayal. Wisdom that was deepened in seasons of waiting. A voice that was refined in silence. These are not random strengths. They are keys. And heaven does not hand keys to just anyone. Keys are only given to those who have been tested. And you have been tested. Not once. Not lightly. But thoroughly. You've been pushed to your limits. Stripped of pride. Emptied of false ambition. You've stood in dry places where no one knew your name. And you still chose to worship. You've cried with no comfort but God's presence. You've heard, "Not yet," when you were certain the time was right. And yet you stayed. You stayed when walking away would have made more sense. You stayed when prayers went unanswered. You stayed when your identity was questioned. You stayed when it cost you your comfort, your community, even your certainty. That kind of staying speaks louder than any sermon. And now, the same voice that refined you is releasing you. Not to return to old places, not to fill old roles, but to walk in prophetic authority, the kind that doesn't need a title, the kind that doesn't chase a microphone, the kind that carries weight in every room because heaven has endorsed you. This is your transition from testing to territory. Yes, territory. Because your obedience hasn't just unlocked revelation, it has activated access. You are no longer a wanderer. You are a possessor. And the ground you're about to walk on is not for survival, it's for establishment. You're not here to visit. You're here to build. But builders must be clear. That's why God allowed the stripping, the misunderstandings, the lonely nights. He was removing anything that would pollute the assignment. You've lost a lot, but what's left is pure. Pure oil, pure fire, pure motive, pure sound, and purity is rare. That's why your presence will feel strange to some. You won't always be welcomed where you go, but you will always be recognized. Because the ones who carry divine authority don't need to announce themselves. They are spiritually sensed. That's why the right doors are about to open without striving. Why divine connections are already being drawn to you. You've stopped chasing validation, and now validation will chase you. Not for your ego, but for heaven's agenda. Because God doesn't elevate people, elevates posture. And your posture has changed. You no longer need to prove yourself. You're not led by impulse. You don't need applause to obey. You move when heaven moves. You speak when the Spirit stirs. You lead without needing followers. You listen longer than you speak. You trust the process more than your platform. This is the posture of the trusted, the dangerous, the remnant, those whom the world underestimates but hell fears. That's why you had to be hidden, because what you carry is too holy to be handled casually. And now, because you've been hidden well, you will be revealed with weight. And with that revealing comes responsibility. You're not stepping into comfort. You're stepping into consequence. Your yes will cost you comfort. Your presence will provoke principalities. Your obedience will make you a target. But you won't walk in fear, because what you carry is not just message, it's mantle, and mantles come with backing. Heaven backs what it breathes into. And you, chosen one, are breathing revelation that didn't come from books or conferences but from encounters. What lives in you was passed down in dreams, in visions, in war rooms of the Spirit. And now, it's time to release it. Your life will no longer be marked by waiting, but by walking. Not in confusion, but in clarity. Not in fear, but in boldness. Not in shadows, but in divine exposure. You are no longer becoming. You are. Now walk like it. This is the hour where the weight of your yes can no longer be whispered. Chosen one. Everything in your life has been leading to this collision point where revelation meets responsibility, where calling meets consequence. You are not here by accident. You are not feeling this weight for no reason. Heaven has not just identified you, has summoned you. This message isn't emotional fluff. It's divine instruction. You've crossed through the waters. You've survived the furnace. You've waited in silence. And now, the Spirit says clearly, step out from among them. Stand in who I have made you to be. Say it. Declare it. Live it. There's no more delay to hide behind. The old excuses no longer fit. The version of you that needed reassurance has died in the wilderness. What remains is read even if trembling, even if uncertain, even if raw. The readiness of heaven is not based on your confidence, it's based on your obedience. And obedience requires more than internal agreement. It requires public alignment. Yes, this message is for you, not as comfort but as a commission. You've sat long enough at the edge of the call. You've felt the tug, seen the signs, heard the whispers at 3:33 a.m., and now the voice doesn't whisper anymore. It declares, come forth. Not in fear, not in shame, but in holy fire. This fire isn't here to destroy you. It's here to purify you, to burn away every trace of hesitation, to sear, shut the door to delay, to ignite what's been buried deep under layers of fear, failure, and false humility. Because what God has placed inside you, it isn't dormant. It's awaiting your release. You are not an echo. You are a voice. You are not a follower. You are a forerunner. You are not surviving. You are being sent. But being sent requires a decision. One that goes beyond emotion. One that goes beyond scrolling. One that's made visible in the realm of men and marked in the realm of spirit. If this message has pierced your sulif, your chest is heavy, and your spirit is shaking, then don't just feel something, say something. Let this moment become a holy altar, where you not only receive a word, but return one. Let heaven record what hell fears you'll never declare. Not another, I'll think about it. Not another, maybe later. Not another, one day. Say it now. I choose the fire. Oh, because the fire is where you are forged. The fire is where the weight falls off. The fire is where excuses die and identity rises. When you say, I choose the fire, you are choosing to be refined rather than entertained. You are choosing holiness over hype, assignment over applause, depth over comfort. It is the declaration of those who don't just want a touch from God, they want to carry Him. And make no mistake, when heaven hears this kind of yes, realms open, the Spirit begins to move with urgency. Angels take position. Oil begins to flow. Chains snap quietly in the invisible. Because obedience activates the impossible, and fire followers are those who carry unshakable weight in unstable times. That's why the warfare has been so specific, so personal. Because you've been marked for a moment like this, where your one-sentence response shifts the direction of generations. As we read in the book of Zechariah, chapter 13, verse 9 says, I will put them into the fire. I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. They will call on my name, and I will answer them. Chosen one. Fire is not God's rejection. Fire is God's response. It is His way of preparing the vessel for something greater than applause. He is not interested in what flatters the world. He is after what transforms it. And you are His answer to darkness in this hour. But it begins here, with this moment, with your response. Don't scroll past this call as if it's common. Don't bury what you feel under convenience. Heaven doesn't waste breath. And this word was never meant to entertain you. It was meant to activate you. So do what the Spirit is stirring in you to do. Click like as a sign you don't just agree. You align. Share this message because someone else is dying inside while waiting for a confirmation you now carry. Subscribe, not for content, but to stay under the current of glory that is flowing through this stream. And most of all, comment, "I choose the fire." Let that sentence hit the air like a sword. Let it be the line in the sand. Let it be the phrase that silences every demon that tried to delay you. Let it be your signature in the spirit realm, not because it's dramatic, because it's prophetic. The fire is not your enemy. It's your elevation. Comment now, "I choose the fire." And let heaven release what it's been holding just for you. You've passed the place of wondering. This is no longer about curiosity or coincidence. The weight you feel, the clarity settling in your chest, the urgency waking you up in the quiet hours of the night. This is the confirmation you prayed for. And even if your mind tries to second-guess it, your spirit already knows. This is it. The scroll is nearly closed, and your name has been spoken, not whispered. Spoken, announced in heaven, marked by fire, confirmed by testing, chosen not because you were loud, not because you were perfect, but because you said yes when no one else would. This is not a season of delay. It is a moment of final positioning. You've come too far to turn back now. The comfort that used to seduce you no longer fits. The distractions that used to pull you in now feel hollow. That's not mood, that's transformation. The Spirit has shifted your appetite, and heaven is shifting your assignment. Something has awakened inside you that cannot be explained logically. It is a fire, a knowing, a kingdom weight that makes it impossible to stay in surface places. Your heart has grown allergic to shallow things. That's why certain conversations now feel like noise. That's why certain places feel tight and outgrown. You're not being dramatic. You're being drawn higher. Because you don't belong to the crowd anymore. You've been set apart for something that can't be replicated. And what God is building through you now will not resemble what you've seen around you. It won't follow a template. It won't be easy to explain, and it won't be understood by those still chasing titles instead of truth. But you're not chasing anymore. You've been found. Heaven found you in your surrender, in your late-night obedience, in the silent battles you didn't share, in the mornings when you rose tired but stayed faithful. Every step that felt unseen was fully witnessed by God. You haven't missed your moment. You've become it. Now you're not just waiting for breakthrough. You are the breakthrough, not because of ego, but because of obedience. And that obedience has built a weight inside of you that can now carry something real, something sacred. You carry a sound that this generation needs. It's not a volume. It's a vibration, a spiritual resonance that disrupts delay and awakens destiny. People will be drawn to you and not know why. It won't be charisma. It will be calling. You're not here to perform. You're here to pierce through apathy and shake the sleep off of sleeping souls. That's why you couldn't quit. That's why every time you tried to disappear, the fire came stronger. Because this was never about your convenience. This was about your commission. And this commissioning does not come from man. It comes from the throne. God is commissioning you in silence before he reveals you in power. And that power will not be to build a brand but to break spiritual ground. You will go where others hesitate. You will speak what others dilute. You will carry what others mishandled. Because you were crushed correctly, refined patiently, humbled deeply. And now, what comes out of your mouth will carry weight. But don't expect the world to clap. Expect resistance, because what flows through you will challenge idols. It will disrupt patterns. It will confront generational cycles. But do not be afraid. You weren't raised to please, you were raised to war. And war doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Stillness in chaos. Obedience in confusion. Steadiness in warfare. That's the mark of the chosen. You won't need to prove your power. Your presence will say enough. And when you move, all of heaven will move with you. Because you've been assigned to carry a sound that breaks more than atmospheres, it breaks timelines. That's what obedience does. It accelerates what delay once held hostage. The promises hovering over your life are not fading, they are forming. And every yes you've given in the dark has watered the roots of something immovable. It won't break. It won't fade. It won't need validation. It will stand because it was born in surrender. You are the vessel. You are the altar. You are the echo of heaven's urgency in this hour. And the echo is turning into action. No more hiding. No more shrinking. No more explaining what God has already confirmed. Your emergence isn't about noise. It's about weight. And the ones who carry weight in the kingdom walk with a sound the enemy can't counterfeit. You walk in that sound now. Quiet. Steady. Fearless. And what's coming next won't just affect you, will awaken those assigned to your obedience. This is the time of manifestation. And you are ready. The scroll is nearly finished. The message has gone forth. The weight has been transferred. And you, chosen one, stand at the edge of the final liminal, a finish, but a release. There are things that heaven has waited centuries to do, movements that have been delayed by disobedience, territories that remained untouched because no one said yes with full surrender. And now, through all the refining, all the crushing, all the dying to self, you have become the one who will not delay any longer. This is not a title. This is not a badge of honor. This is a spiritual entrustment. You've felt it lately. The stirring, the increased pressure, the divine dissatisfaction with surface-level things. You've tried to explain it to others, but they look back at you blankly. Not because they're bad people, but because this level was not meant to be understood by many. The chosen always look strange when they begin to burn. And you are burning now, not with ambition, not with anger, not with desperation, but with holy responsibility, with clarity, with that sobering awareness that what you carry can no longer be muted, paused, or delayed. The dreams you had as a child, they weren't accidents. The moments of sensitivity that others mocked, they were indicators. The rejection you endured wasn't random, it was prophetic insulation. You were set apart early because your impact was designed to be eternal. There is an urgency that is rising in the spirit now. Not panic, not fear, but something deeper, divine finality. What has been circling is about to land. What has been stirring is about to strike. What has been forming is about to be fulfilled. And when that fulfillment comes, it will not wait for applause. It will not consult your calendar. It will break in suddenly, move quickly, and settle where there is agreement. You have been brought to this precise point, not to spectate, but to step in. The scroll is closing, but not in grief, in glory. What has been announced over your life is not a prediction, it is a divine decree. You are no longer preparing, you are now activating. The seasons of searching for confirmation are over. You've heard enough, seen enough, escaped enough. The mercy of God protected you while you wrestled. But the mercy that protected you is now becoming the fire that pushes you. You are not being chased anymore. You are being commissioned. And commissioning looks like movement. Movement into uncomfortable places. Movement into bold prayers. Movement into risks that only make sense in the spirit. Movement into words that don't flatter but pierce. Movement that doesn't wait for open doors but speaks to them and watches them respond. Because you, chosen one, have become a door yourself. People will walk through you, not to meet you, but to meet him. You will become a gate of access, a wellspring of revelation, a living altar that speaks of what God can do when someone refuses to run. The oil on your life is no longer in seed form. It has broken through the press. The weight has increased. The sound has deepened. The posture has matured. And because of that, heaven is shifting how it handles you. From this moment forward, you will feel it. The gravity of your words, the consequence of your silence, the sharpness of your discernment, the speed of answered prayer, the alignment of people you've never met, the tension in places you no longer belong. These are not glitches in your journey. These are signs that the scroll is closing, that what you've been carrying is now fully developed. You are not who you were. That version died somewhere between the waiting and the weeping. This version, it walks differently. It sees beyond the surface. It hears what others dismiss. It senses the shifts before they're spoken. Because this version was formed in the furnace. And what's forged in fire fears nothing. The final message has been delivered. It is no longer echoing, it is activating. You will walk into rooms and awaken things that were asleep. You will speak and expose assignments of darkness without trying. You will pray and watch timelines bend. Not because of who you are, but because of what you agreed to carry. And what you've agreed to carry, it now has full permission to flow through you. No more delay. No more hiding. No more second guessing. You have passed the test. You are the fulfillment of a promise made generations before you were born. Now go, and don't look back. Chosen one, if you've made it to this point, it's not by accident. You didn't scroll here. You were summoned. You didn't just listen, you lingered. You didn't just consume the words, you felt them burn into your soul. This was not just a message. It was a divine mantle, a scroll written with your name on it. And now that it has been fully unsealed, heaven is watching your response. Because moments like this are not meant to pass, they are meant to mark. And if this marked you, if something shifted inside your chest, if your tears carried clarity, if your breath grew still in reverence, then don't let it fade into the feed. Click like to agree with heaven's timing. Share this message so others can find the same fire you found. Subscribe to stay connected to what heaven is still releasing through this stream. And comment your response. Not to be seen, but to be sealed. Let it be simple. Let it be bold. Let it echo your yes. Because this moment won't come again. And when the scroll closes, what you said will be written in eternity. You were never average, never forgotten, never accidental. You were always the one. And heaven, it always knew your name. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Let this be the moment the realm of darkness realized. You answered the call.